Assalamu alaikum. Good morning and good evening, everyone. I just now just test the sound that everything is okay or not. Can you just reply on the question part mentioning that is you can hear me or not in the question?
Okay, I hear you good.
Excellent. Thanks, Cassie. Okay, excellent. Thanks for joining us today. This is our third webinar, our weekly webinar in row starting from April. This is Muhammad Khalaf, the president for American Society of Safety Professional Egypt chapter, and the president for Egyptian Society of Safety Professional. 2 weeks ago, we start our first webinar covering the COVID-19 or the medical part for the COVID-19, and we're hosting one of the doctors, the head of the department, chest department in Cairo University in Egypt, and this was the part one for the webinar. And today, and we promising that is we cover first the first part regarding the medical symptoms and how to deal with reporting cases in your side or in your family, whatever. And now we taking the other part as a safety professional. How can we use what is our role as a safety professional to keep the business running and really to focus on the add value for the safety function in your site. But before we start, let me just give you some orientation for the people first time using the GoToWebinar. As you can see on my screen. This is the mic here. Everyone here is muted, and we will allow once you at the end, if you would like to ask a question, you can raise your hand, or you can write during the session the question in this part, and we will take the question at the end of the session. Cassie will be more than happy to answer all of your question. So please write it down the question here, so in order not to forget it. So when we come to the end of this webinar, we can read the question and reply to all of you. This webinar is recorded and it will be available on the American Society Egypt chapter website, as well as the slides which will be shown by Cassie, which will be also shared or posted on our website. The website I will show it to you at the end of this webinar. So Cassie, I think you can share your screen now.
Okay. Okay, do you want me, I have this up here right now. Do you want me to go to my presentation now?
Is not showing up. Yes, sorry.
Okay, there it is.
Can you just
okay?
No, it's not showing. Can you try again, please?
Okay, right now I see it. I see the first page of my presentation.
But we can.
Okay. Oh, there you go. Show my screen.
Yes, now we can see it. Yes.
Okay. Okay, shall I start?
Yes. Thanks, Cassie.
Okay, very good. It's a pleasure to be here today, and I'm very honored actually to get a call from Mohammed and Ahmed, two colleagues that are in my past. Ahmed shared with me a number of LinkedIn profiles, and I'm delighted to see that many of you are in my past when I worked with American Standard and Egyptian colleagues, either in the trained facilities or the American Standard, Ideal Standard facilities. So this is a very special opportunity for me. So I'm very thankful to be asked to participate with all of you in the chapter. Today it was described to me to provide some information or a summary, some advice, and actions that you can take as safety, health, and environmental professionals and how to deal with what we're going through right now. And particularly, how do you prepare your business for resilience, to make its way through the current situation and to prepare for the future when it comes to a pandemic like this. So for me, I'm sharing with you what I call leading change as a safety, health, environmental professional to a new normal. And we're going to be having a new normal, whatever that's going to look like. This is a little bit about myself. For the last 13 years, I've been, after American Standard, I began Breakthrough Results, and I've been doing safety culture work, safety, health, environmental, and sustainability culture transformations. Spending a lot of time actually in sustainability now. I also have, as you can see, Safety and Sustainability Breakthroughs. I have a radio show, I've got a TV show, basically culminating in my 40 years, oh my goodness, 40 years experience in this field, long time. And throughout that time, you see multiple degrees and certifications, which I see a number of you have, and I think it's a wonderful thing to keep growing your skill base and your knowledge base to stay current. So today our objective is, this is not a technical discussion. As Mohammed shared with you, you had a wonderful session before this one, looking at some specifics and technical issues. I'll talk a little bit about technical issues, but today this discussion is really all around leadership and driving the change that we need to help our organizations through. So I'm going to begin with just a little bit of updates about where we are and what have we learned so far from going through this pandemic, and then talk about us as safety, health, and professionals, environmental professionals. What's our role? Who are we? How do we demonstrate the value? So what do we do as professionals? And then lastly, how do we really make a difference? And this is the crux of our session today, of how do we help an organization survive this and actually not survive, but thrive through this and be strong enough to make its way through the next business cycles, and smart enough that I think we all know this is not the first pandemic that we've experienced, and it's not likely to be the last, as well as experts saying that we may have another hump of reoccurrence after we reach whatever a plateau is. It's not unusual to have a second wave. So I'm going to share with you some ideas that I've learned when I've helped American Standard go through its the various pandemics, so avian flu, swine flu, SARS. So a lot of this, if you've worked with me in the past, this is going to look familiar because we were successful in making our way through it. So that's what I'm going to be sharing with you. Okay, here we are right now. Not good news, but this was just as of the 16th, and you can see the number of cases worldwide, over 2 million. I mean, it's very sobering data. This is who we are, where we are, and I can see I added Egypt at the base of this chart that was publicly available. This information is all publicly available. John Hopkins, CDC, this information is all over. Lots of data collection going on, but you can see the hubs of where these cases are right now, the cases, the deaths, and recoveries. So, you know, lots of ill people, and we're learning. This is a very fluid situation. It's called a novel virus because it's brand new. We haven't experienced this before, so we're learning from our past, but also kind of learning on the fly. And these charts kind of demonstrated that there's countries that have done a very good job, or at least better than some others, in preparedness. And I'm going to go through that because this is all about being a leader and how we as safety, health, environmental leaders can help our businesses through this with our own leadership role. And hopefully you hear a lot about flattening the curve. right? And the idea is that we're going to be looking at containment first, and then if we can, mitigation in order to reduce the number of cases so that we don't override and surpass our medical communities and our staff and our facilities and our equipment capabilities. So we're looking to flatten this curve, and you can see where the different countries are right now on this. You see the countries at the top: Spain, US, UK, and Italy. Germany's riding up there, but you see where we are. You see the countries that have lower rates, and you see that presumably China is flattened out. So collectively, as we look at what happened here and the lessons learned, we can be preparing ourselves. We should be learning from and preparing ourselves. And some of the countries who have done such a good job at least lowering that curve, flattening the curve, this is what they've experienced and what they've learned. And also countries, again, this is not our first situation in experiencing a pandemic, a biological pandemic. And I'll just mention a few of these, and they're not going to be a surprise to us. Us in the safety, health, environmental field, because this is how we talk, this is how we learn, this is how we act. It's all around preparedness and prevention. That's who we are. So this is, in some ways, it's reassuring the good news for us as being the leaders and how we can help our businesses. Because as a preparedness, some of the countries that have done a very good job look at putting in central epidemic control centers with roles and responsibilities, procedures and policies in place, training in place, equipment in place. That's who we are. So again, from a preparedness perspective, not necessarily for this virus, but basically how we operate. This is what we need. If we're not leveraging it now, we should be, because again, this is our mind. Quick responses, and then go over to being prepared. Acting quickly. We use data when we can, technology when we can, and with databases. So we've got databases that we learn from. What's happening right now in this situation is countries are using their national health and hospital databases and travel databases to know who's coming in, where they're going, what's their health situation. And I know that in some countries it's raising issues of privacy and respecting privacy. But there also comes a time when the public good overrides some of these issues. So as I share that with you, one thing I will not get into with us today is politics. There's a lot of noise in the system. That is, I think, distracting from some of the science and the technology and the medical and the experts and the facts of what we really need to focus on. So our time together is very limited, and I won't get into a political debate. So I'm going to stay factual, stay at a leadership level, and what we need to do as professionals. I think the last couple comments on this, what lessons learned. You see, be cautious and use risk assessments. Again, this is who we are. So again, not new that communities are struggling and listening and learning from one another and beginning to look at risk assessments. To be cautious is actually when you think that things are looking like they're good, they're under control. Maybe we can lessen some restrictions, we can lessen some closures, we can have some more people coming back to work. That's a real caution sign. And good, solid risk assessments are needed at that point, whether it's done by the government on our behalf or whether we do it. We do it as professionals about what's going to happen in our business, what's going to happen plant by plant. I understand that there's also some construction folks on the line, so equally applicable. I've done a lot of work with construction and gone to job sites. So whether we're looking at the four walls of a plant or whether we're looking at technicians and service technicians in construction that are out servicing equipment or doing jobs in the public domain, everything is exactly the same. The same thought process. The details are going to be different because we're looking at different work environments and the impacts of perhaps weather in different situations like that you may not have in a plant base. But regardless, the approach is the same. So again, You are the professionals on the line. You do this every day. You know about being prepared. You know about being preventative. You know about doing risk assessments and the importance of communication training and fact-based decisions and not getting into rumors, not getting into false information. And yes, when it comes time, I raise my hand. I have been aggressive at times because we just need to be there. We need to do this. We draw a personal line in the sand and say, this is what we need to do, and we go to battle. And I've been in plenty of battles where I won't give in, or I make a good fight anyway. And then I look for those win-win negotiations, but I know what I want, and I know what I need to do my job well. And so do you. So yes, this being aggressive plays out in our plants and plays out right now in what we need to do. And I guess the last part about partnerships is an idea, and I'm sure you do this now, but we don't have all the answers as a company, and there's incredibly bright people in all different segments and industries that are working on this particular issue, that we're talking about now. So whether it's laboratories or it's universities, I keep track of this every day. I'm sure you do too. But some of the most recent promising developments are coming out of universities, and with antibody tests, antigen tests, vaccines, and new swab tests that are using saliva and not nasopharynx swipes. So that's all incredible developments that are happening very quickly, and they're not happening because a company is doing it. They're happening because we're partnering with 2 and 3, even 4 organizations, and many of them are universities. And the last I'll leave you, and it actually nicely walks us into the discussion of our webinar, is building capability, capacity, and skills. In your organization, what can you handle from a very technical perspective and a very asset perspective of building capabilities along this prevention of, do you have enough masks? Do you have enough gloves? Do you have enough thermometers? Do you have enough aprons and goggles and other things that you may need? What's your workflow look like? And we'll get into this, but it's capacity within your business and in your plants, but it's also human capacity. Are we teaching people what's true, what's false, what's their role and responsibility, where do they go for information, what's the proper way to do their job? And again, we do that a lot in safety. What's the proper thing to do? What do you need to wear? How do you need to behave from a safety perspective? Well, same exact thinking here. And then the skills. And the last part I'll leave, but I'll come back to it later, is your own skills. This may be new for some people to deal with a crisis this large, this fluid, this unknown. Sometimes your supervisors, the senior leaders of the business may want answers, and we just don't have them. But we can build the skills and enhance the skills that we have to find the answers, to find the resources, and to build our own, I'll call business acumen, because at times we're going to be having to do these risk assessments without a full set of facts. We're going to have to take what we've got and make some very well-educated decisions. So building capacity in your organization, building capacity with you, and people that you may work with. Lots of lessons are being learned right now. That's the bottom line. Also, good news is that these lessons aren't necessarily new to us. So we should be very comfortable leveraging who we are and what we do. So here we are at our roles. Obviously, we've got 2 big buckets. One's a technical role, and you can see the kind of things that are in the technical arena. Basically, we're containing, we're solving problems, we're helping people, we're training people in how to deal with the current situation, putting in whatever policies, procedures, whatever we need to do, training, gear, and always looking for that hierarchy of controls. We want to get it out, whatever that risk is, and then we'll deal with the residual. That's a role that we've got. I think a bigger and more impactful role is that we're leaders too. So you can do your technical role, you don't have to be a leader to do it. But you'll be much more effective if you're a leader when you try to accomplish that technical role by being a partner with the business. And that's your site leaders, your business level leaders, your functional leaders. Functional leaders are people like HR, maintenance, engineering, operations, IT, logistics, warehouse, transportation. Those are your functional leaders. They run a function within the business. And then, of course, there's the site leader and the business leader. But at every level, there's going to be plans, there's going to be resources needed, implementation of whatever the plans are, creating policies to help people understand what to do, and then enforcement of those policies. So within that leadership role, how can we accelerate the technical programs that we've got? And this really gets into our role as being a leader of change. And I'm going to get into this more, but it's important to just put this on the table that we've got two roles and they're overlapping. And again, you can do technical role without being a real strong leader, but you'll be much more effective if you are the leader and you look at yourself as a servant leader. You know, our job is to help the business be successful. And the best way that we can do that right here are these 24 business processes. And I'm going to get to those in a second. Before I do, I just want to kind of reiterate, because again, this webinar is not focused on the technical so much as more the leadership and who we are and what we do in order to help our businesses. So these are the roles and responsibilities that we each have. And you can see 7 of those 8, in my opinion, these are the key 7 roles. 7 of those 8 are leadership roles. And I have always thought, and I will continue to believe, that we are the best professional when we recognize ourselves as a leader, and with that becomes responsibilities. And at the top, you can see this integrate into the business processes. This is, if I share with you some of the most important things I've learned over my career, this is going to be one of them for sure. It may be the #1 issue. Because as a leader, in order to make change and to have safety top of mind, or safety, health, and environmental, you hear it built into the business's DNA. You hear those phrases quite often, I'm sure. This is how it's actually done. So we align and we integrate our needs and who we are into how the business operates. We're not a silo, we're not parallel, we are integrated. And in that way, we help the business do what it needs to do at the same time that safety, health, and environment is getting taken care of. So in that way, we're a leader, we're beginning to mold the organization, help transform it, and become or evolve into the culture where safety, health, environment is a value. And in this case, we're looking at what do we need to do to mold, transform an organization where we can control, at least contain rather than control, how this COVID-19 is influencing and spreading within our organizations. How do we do that? What does that look like? Okay, we've got a view of that because we're the technical experts. And this is our job now to help integrate what's necessary into the business. So the business is strong and robust and resilient through this first wave, and if there's a future wave. And how we do that, we guide and engage our leaders. I think more and more our leaders, especially I'm hearing and seeing now, our leaders, even the senior most leaders at the board level, they're relying on people like us to help guide them into how big and bad is this thing. Now we may not have the answers, but we know where to go find them, or at least we know the right people to ask. And then these medical experts and other people, they may not have the answers either because it's so fluid right now. But our leaders are relying on us to answer some of these questions and to at least stay on top of the issues. And I'll get into that in a second. I mean, the information is just evolving so fast as to what we're learning about this virus, and that's good. So with integrating and helping our leaders understand the situation, our job is now to build these systems. So we're going to work with our process leaders and we're going to build what we need to contain, control, mitigate resilience for our business in the future into whatever processes exist, and to make sure that we've got systems strong enough to do that prevention. Remember, those lessons is to be ahead of the game, is to be prepared, to act quick, to have the organizations and the roles and responsibilities already identified. This is right here. This is build these proactive systems. We don't want to be scrambling at the last minute. We want to get ahead of it. And that's always been our job. That's how we think. We want to get ahead of things. So it's that same philosophy in this current situation. So with roles come responsibilities, and with responsibilities come some skills. So this is skills that I think are critical in order to accomplish what we just said. And these are really questions for yourself. How strong are your skills in these? These skills that are highlighted here, I think that these are the most important with the situation at hand. How well do we communicate? How well do we recognize that all the people that we work with are basically our internal customers? And then our business always serves external customers. So do we know and understand what these customers are needing? Because it's going to definitely influence our leaders. I mean, we're in business. We still want to remain in business. So what do those customers outside, our purchasing customers, need and want from us? What do they expect from us? So their issues become our issues. And then many of those fall right onto the plate of safety, health, and environment. And then with that, gaining the commitment, motivating, this is those leaders, right? We want to help educate those leaders. Well, this is a skill set that we do it. We have no position power over these people. So how do we get what we want done? We gain their commitment by influencing them, by building trust with them. Down here, we listen and learn. We don't have all the answers. We never have, we never will. Because this is their work, their processes. So we need to understand them, right? Seek first to understand. And then we're going to come in with, this is what I think we need to do. This is how we're going to work together on this. This is the timeline. This is what you can do to help both of us. This is what I can do to help both of us. So by doing that, we're building partnerships. Along with that comes, how strategic are you? So this is getting out of, I'm a safety person, and this is getting into, I am a business partner, and I'm helping leading my organization to success through this pandemic, and then with resilience, building it into the future. So we can make it through there may be a second wave, but undoubtedly there's going to be something else. And if it's not a pandemic, there's something else that's going to disrupt us. So we want to build ourselves strong enough to sustain disruption. And in that, we're going to lead change. I'm going to get into exactly this in a moment, sharing with you what I've seen successful and how do you really lead a change. So with all these skills comes, I already mentioned about, we will be taxed to make some decisions, and we may not have all the facts. It's just the way it is. And we're going to have to do the best we can. We can call each other. You've got a fabulous network together through your chapter. And I hope you call each other, use each other, network with each other to help make wise decisions. And then also counting on your own business acumen. This is how savvy you are. How well do you understand where the business is? Is your business already suffering? Or is your business very strong and robust? Does your business like to form partnerships? Is that how it operates, or is it really running independently? So is your business strong in, I'll call it innovation and R&D, constantly looking for the next best thing? Is that how your business churns and operates? Or does it grow by merger and acquisition? Those are important points, because this is how, with business acumen, you can talk to those leaders. Because remember, you take this business acumen and you go right over here. And this is how you influence your business leaders, because you're not just talking safety anymore or the death rate with this virus. Now you're talking about, this is our business, this is where we go, this is where we want to go, and this is how we're going to sustain ourselves. So this is what we need to do, business leader or plant manager. So this is how you influence the people that you need to. So this is a question for you. How strong are your skills to do this? How comfortable are you to do this? How confident are you to do this? If you're not, this is when you need to maybe work with your group, work with your chapter, work with your colleagues, work with your HR department, contact somebody like me. I'm willing to help all the time, because I want to see everybody be successful. So with the roles and responsibilities, you have skills, And now let's say, okay, now let's see how we show it. I've talked about be a business partner, and then I use this word serve very deliberately because that's who I believe we are. And in my past, working with, I think some of you on our call, we serve the business, and we have a job to do, and yet we have a job to do that's going to serve the business in its own business needs, its timing, and at the same time, we're going to get what we want to. I always said to the business leaders, we make no mistake. I know what I want, and I want it for the good of the business, but I also want to recognize who you are, what you do, the value that you bring, and how can we partner on this? How can we align on what we need to do so that we're working together? And most importantly, in this situation, is looking at what's material. So what's really important to the business at this point is the business, for instance, here is the business an essential business. In the United States, businesses have been identified as essential or with a critical infrastructure. And those businesses are given dispensation from some of the limitations and restrictions that are in place now with social distancing. Because, I mean, these are utilities, these are the construction industry is one that's considered essential. All the food and the pharmaceuticals and pharmacies are considered essential. Critical infrastructure is most of our utilities. Essential, of course, is the healthcare field. So these people are given extra weight to do what they need to do, extra equipment, extra help, so that they can continue to do their job to service all of us. So with that, serving as a business partner, understanding what's being imposed on us by local, state, or national governments, we need to understand that. We need to understand who we are, we're essential or not, and then what do we need to do to control the situation? And along with controlling it, or containment and mitigation, it really depends where we are. So I'll get to that in my next slide, because it influences what we do, depending on where you are in this curve and how aggressive the government's being, or whatever limitations you might have. But regardless of that, we've got a very critical role on the leadership team. So I hope you all are sitting with the leadership team. Because again, I mean, just reviewing what we have so far, we are an absolutely critical component of what every business needs to know and understand in order to set its direction, its strategy, its timeline. What does that new normal look like? How fast are we going to get there? How slow are we going to get there? And what do we need to do to set it up? I call it's this new safety, health, environmental culture. That's exactly what it is. We're looking at safety and health of our employees differently now. And if we're not, we should be. We should be taking the lessons of the past from other pandemics and other crises and building them into this new normal, this new culture. So with that, there should be, whoops, sorry. Oh, come on. Some plans being developed, and you probably have these already. If you do have them, revise them, refresh them with the current situation. If you don't have them, create them, because they give your organization a roadmap. Wise resource allocation, wise authorization, and roles, responsibilities, all the different people that are involved, the right kind of funding, the right kind of timing on actions. These plans will help make it very clear for people so that they've got trust and confidence that the organization knows what it's doing, and that they'll much more readily take the actions that are going to be mandated, frankly. This is that be aggressive. Yeah, we're going to be aggressive, and we're going to be firm in what we do. These aren't suggestions. These are mandates, and they may not be long-term mandates, but this isn't debatable. So you go in with that mindset. You help your leaders understand that, and then they'll back you. So you can see the kind of plans for business continuity, resilience, emergency, crisis management, Strategic communications. The strategic communications is one thing that I've learned over the years, that how important this is. And it rises above kind of like ad hoc communications, and the plant leader or the business leader may be having weekly communications or town hall meetings or sending out some kind of email blast, or maybe video conferences at all the different plants. Those are fine. They're fine, and they're better if they fit into a strategy. So the communications in timing, in frequency, in means, and content are not ad hoc. It's extremely well planned. What's going to be said, who's going to say it, knowing the audience, so that who's going to say it in that audience, the message can change, and it should change a little bit. So for instance, what an executive or a plant manager is going to tell his or her leadership team is different than what that person's going to be doing, maybe a town hall meeting for supervisors and the employee base, right? Right. You can have same core message, the words are going to be different, and they should, because all these different audiences have very different, I'll call it rhythms, what's in it for me, but they're worried about different things, and they have different roles, responsibilities in the organization. So their messages from their senior leader should reflect that. So again, it sounds obvious, right? But I've learned this, how important this is to maintain a sense of trust, a sense of control, to give people a sense of calm, that we know what we're doing. And these are the steps. Even if you can tell them 1 or 2 steps ahead, be very honest, transparent. Hey, look, this is a terrible situation. It's changing every day, but this is where we are, and these are the next 1 or 2 things that we're going to do, and this is how you're going to find out, and this is maybe what your role in it is, or at least how it's going to impact you on a day-to-day basis, right? Makes so much sense, and it can do your organization a world of good and make your life an incredibly much easier, because people know what to expect, as opposed to you trying to push things in or force it. When people are educated, at least they're made aware, they're going to be more receptive. So us as a partner, I think I skipped one. Oh, okay. Us as a partner. So when we're partnering, I think I may have mentioned this before. Some of you may have seen this. Again, if you worked with me, you've seen this before. But this is probably, again, I tell you, one of the most important things that I've learned over my years, and this is one of the most important things I'm sharing with you right now. It could be safety, health, and environment, doesn't matter. But the alignment and the integration of who we are and what we do and what's important to us. So within this current realm of trying to contain and control the spread and mitigate the severity, if you put that issue in alignment into every one of these 24, just look at them for a second and say, it impacts that issue, this issue in front of us right now impacts and has a job to do, or word it the other way, the processes that are listed here can actually help accelerate the work that needs to be done for business resilience and to contain and mitigate the impact of the virus. So look at new hiring or contract hiring. Who are you going to be hiring in this situation? So who's going to be coming in? Are they considered essential personnel or not? What kind of training are they going to need in your procedures? Do you want them screened before they show up? And if you do, who's going to do the screening? Who's going to pay for that screening? Okay, just a couple questions on that first bullet. So you see that HR owns this. So that means right now you may have had to let people go. I don't know, maybe less shifts or production ramped down maybe a little bit, but you're going to be starting up, right? So maybe you're going to be hiring people back. Maybe you put your current people on furlough for a moment, for a short time. You let the contractors go. Now you're going to hire new contractors. You're going to hire new employees. You're going to bring current employees back. Those are the questions that you have. and you need to talk to HR because HR owns that, right? We don't, HR does. So you just go down each one of these about HR owns these, and that means we have, our job is to integrate into what HR owns. It says, okay, here's my issues. Here's the coronavirus, COVID-19. Here's the issues. This is what we know so far. So this is how we need to revise the process that you have in place right now and you follow in order to provide third-party selection, in order to provide discipline, in order to provide recognition, in order to train our leaders, in order to do performance reviews, in order to do union negotiations, in order to design our workplace, in order health benefits and wellness, enormous issues, right? So these are the discussions that you would have with HR. Now move over to this side. These are the discussions that you would have with the head of operations to say, okay, here we are. We know we've got a situation here. We know we're going to be having people coming back. Now we know we need to do some mitigation. We're going to try to screen them out. We're going to try to do a little bit of containment. Maybe we need to build a separate area, a quarantine area. Okay, let's take care of that. That could be maintenance, that could be engineering, that may be manufacturing, get it out of manufacturing area, that quarantine area. Okay, now let's go into ops, say these people come back in. What are they going to do? We may have to redesign the workplace in order to have social distancing, or we may need to put up barriers that didn't exist before. So this is a discussion with the head of operations. Likewise, go down to new process changes. Because of the business operations, the work that you do, the products that you make, the services that you provide, they may be different for a short time or a long time. You know, I mean, this could happen. So if that's the case, or we've got new processes coming in place, what new safety, health, environmental risks are going to be presented? And with this COVID virus, how do we sustain what we need to do with social distancing, or to make sure that any kind of changes, management of change, maybe pre-job reviews, how are they going to change? I'm sure you have the processes in place now, right? How are they going to change with this new world and all these new people coming in? And now you're ramping up, right? Hopefully. So you get new groups of people in. Now you're ramping up production. These new processes. What else do I need to do? What do I need to think about with where do I put my raw materials? Where do I put the raw materials stage? Do I need to stage in process work? What about packaging? You know, packaging is usually right in the middle. Well, it could be. A lot of plants is kind of right in the middle of things, right? That can't be anymore. And how do you make sure they, depending on what you make, some of my clients, or I've worked with people in the food industry, so everything has to be, it always has to be sanitized, but now they have to take extraordinary measures in order to make sure that the basic sanitation is even ramped up a little bit more. So think about what you do. For those in service or construction, you're out working in the field. Okay, how is this going to be changing? Remember, you got social distancing going on. This is a big deal. I mean, if you're working with, say you're trenching, right? Or you're doing work, and most work where you're out servicing, you've always got one or two people. You've got, I'll call them buddies, but there's a more efficient or more official term than that. But you're not working alone. You know, you're working with another person. Your supervisor may be there, your foreman, your general foreman may be there. How are you going to be working with each other? How are you going to be doing the signals and the other things that you do together all the time? How's that going to happen now? And can you do it while you're social distancing? You may need to change some of that. Likewise, some of the services, when we had train, we had to be in contact with the customers. I remember the service guys in train. I mean, they went to residential area, and they had to be in contact with the service, with the people in the homes. They had to go into the homes to service the air conditioners or recharge them. I mean, how is it going to be happening now? These are questions that you would say, hey, look, I'm the safety, health, environmental person here. I understand we're ramping up. That's fantastic. In the service area, we got some issues we got to resolve. How are we going to do that together? I'm going to tell you where the problems are and the risks are, and together we're going to work out the solutions. So that's a discussion with the service guys, for instance. So I'm not going to go all through these, but I think you have the idea. And at the end, when we have questions, I'll be glad to answer questions, but I'll tell you that this is the key to embedding safety, health, environment, or in our case, containment and mitigation of this virus, and allowing the business to move forward without being stymied. This is the key. It's also the key to create the new culture. Because every time you talk with HR about any of these 11 issues, or you talk with the business operations here, or you talk about, with the leaders about planning and goal setting, you are increasing their appreciation, their awareness, their understanding, and their support of who we are and what we do. We're building it in, and every single discussion increases that ownership, increases that knowledge. And that's a step forward every time to build a culture. This is your key to building the new culture. Okay, so there's one part of it. That's your business side of it. Okay, now here's your action side of it. This is your, how do you deal with current operations? How do you deal with a startup? This is a little bit of the technical stuff. I won't spend a lot of time on this because I think you covered it in a previous webinar. But this is now we go. These are the actions we need to take. Take a look at, again, current operations. You're probably in this mix somewhere with shutdowns, reduced employees, reduced production, reduced shifts, probably. And what's important to the business in this current state. So these are the things that I would imagine are important. With some containment, there's probably some screening going on now, although it's very early and it keeps evolving. Some kind of mitigation, common work areas, not to forget about break rooms, canteens, and restrooms, right? So think broad, because those are opportunities for spread. Those are opportunities for where social distancing may be needed. And there's ways to deal with it, staggering shifts and putting up barriers, and we'll get into the hierarchy of controls, and there's some examples. But I think these are the things that come to play when we're in a current state of some kind of shutdown. And then so the questions to ask yourselves are, am I doing everything I can, at least in the short term, to control the risks? I'm still going to try that hierarchy. I'm not going to put everybody in masks. Right? That's not who we are. We're looking at these hierarchy of controls, so we're looking at, can we do something from an engineering perspective? And that PPE is that absolute last resort. We know that. So in order to do that, we may need some new policies or programs, right? Things have to be shifted a little bit. And in that case, we just talked about HR, and procurement's another very important business function that we work with. Procurement is key, in fact. I'm working with another company right now, and a real alignment and integration with how do we get all the masks we need, the masks, the N95s, the thermometers, the sanitizing equipment, the aprons, the goggles. How do we do that when the whole world is looking for exactly the same thing, right? Enormous task. And then you, oops, sorry. And then you let your team with your procurement people to try to find these and be creative. I mean, I'm helping people find them in the craziest places we can find masks. For instance, I'm not even sure what you call it. They are like tchotchkes, like little logo kind of things, little things you can give away, and you can put your logo on them. Like a place like that, they sell masks. And I've been buying and helping other organizations buy. No, they don't have N95s, of course, but they've got surgical masks, and they're the real thing. From so it's not just a piece of cotton or a piece of cloth. So I mean, to think broadly and creatively with your procurement, try to find these things. The other place I've been able to help people find them is in the food industry, especially, well, gloves and masks, especially the gloves in food preparation. So you go to restaurant supply chains, the suppliers of restaurant equipment. They've got that's part of their normal product line. So again, be creative there. Okay, so we're looking at current operations. Here's the hierarchy of controls I just met. This diagram you must have seen probably 100 times. It's everywhere. Nothing new here, but it can equally apply to us in this situation of elimination with no work exposure. Is that telecommuting? Can you substitute a person? I don't know. Sometimes you may be able to do some kind of automation. But here's engineering controls. This is where we start getting into some good actions from a realistic plan perspective or operations perspective or field perspective. Can you put some kind of barrier in place? Changing the work layout, changing the seating. When you think about truckers and the trucking industry and how you have two truckers sitting in their seats. They're probably not 6 feet apart, or maybe they are. I don't know. But even something like the seating has to be thought about in different industries. And then can you put up guards? So these are just some examples for you. I'm sure you've got other things and you probably have in place. Admin controls, again, remember we're getting lower in the effectiveness, but this is where a lot of people are right now. Social distancing, we know it's 6 feet. We know why it's 6 feet. Can we do staggered shifts? Can we do some kind of work, like partial work at home, partial in the plant? A lot of times we can't do that. I mean, it's just not possible. So in that case, screening becomes critical for us, and all the screening processes that are in place. And again, we can talk about it at the end if you want. Training, sanitizing. These are administrative controls just to try to contain. You're not doing any containment at that point. This is pure mitigation. But necessary, because if we can't contain it up here, we got to mitigate whatever comes in. So there we are. And there you are. The last is, oops, I'm sorry, keeps shifting off here. Respirators, masks, PPE, etc. I mean, you all know that. Last resort. Now, part of this where we can really help the business is knowing the latest data. So for instance, I mean, again, the data is changing constantly. We know what we know right now, which goes into these kind of solutions. So we know right now the incubation period is 2 to 14 days post-exposure. We know that. We know the average symptoms start to show in 4 to 5 days. We know, I mean, this is all facts that are out there and confirmed with Johns Hopkins and a number of CDC and WHO and NIOSH and lots of organizations. There's lots of credibility behind at least some of the things that we know so far. We know that people can be asymptomatic and that they can be confirmed positive, but they have no symptoms. That's dangerous because they could be spreading it and we don't know. But we know that that's a risk. We also know that sometimes there's pre-symptomatic, that they have 48 hours before they start to show symptoms. That's what it's also shown. So the details, all the exact details unknown, but we do know that this is a current situation. People do not have to show symptoms in order to be positive, and that means they can be shedding virus and spreading virus and have no symptoms. We also know that the first few days when symptoms do occur, remember they could occur 2 to 14 days, average is 4 to 5, but in those first few days, that's when people are most contagious. We know that. We also know that within 7 days, people are still shedding viruses. And that's why we also know that a lot of the requirements now, if you're out of work, and you can come, or at least some of the guidance right now is you can come back 7 days after you have no symptoms. That's where the 7 days comes from, because data shows that people are still shedding virus after 7 days, right? We know that it's spread by transmission through droplets, and the droplets are heavy and they drop. We also know that it can be aerosolized in small droplets, and we know that it hangs about 3 hours in the air. We also know about survival rates, that the virus lasts 4 hours on copper, 24 hours on cardboard, and about 3 days on plastic or metal. And again, that was done with in a pure laboratory setting. Data starting to show that they can last almost up to 7 days, but that's not been really confirmed. But 3 days is very at least factually based in a laboratory setting by CDC and NIOSH with no airflow. So it's a pristine situation, but it's data. So this is data that we know that we can use to go into these discussions and into these decisions. And whether we're looking at these decisions with HR about, you know, when can we bring people back? What's safe to bring people back? How do we bring people back? When we're working with our operations about what the new work layouts got to look like, at least for the short term, until we get more data that says we don't have to do this. So again, that's where the business relies on us. You know, we're the experts, and they're going to rely on us to have this data or find this data. Okay, I'm trying to get my thing down here. There we go. Okay, so that was the current state. Here's the startup state. I hope, right? I hope and pray this happens very soon for everyone. But when it does, it's going to be phased. It's not going to be a light switch that says, okay, everybody back to work and everything's okay. That is not going to happen. I think we all know that well enough now. But when it does happen, at least people can come back safely, and we can figure out how to either contain it or mitigate it. That again, there's going to be material issues, things that are going to be important to the operations in order to successfully begin to ramp up and welcome new people back and to ramp up our production or service operations. And these are the things that come to mind. If these things are coming to mind, that means that they need to be on the plate, your plate, to go talk to who owns these. So new and returning employees, I would talk to HR. Do we have enough manning levels? This is an HR and an operations issue. Who do we need to get more contractors in? Who does your contractor work? Is it procurement or HR? Somebody's going to hire these contractors, and somebody's going to hire either third-party employees or specialized contractors. Employee protection, here we are, that's us, right? But then we need help. We need who's going to help us with screening, locations of screening, entry controls, PPE responses, all this kind of stuff. It's going to be HR and operations. Some companies are actually hiring a third party to do this, to do the entire planning of the screening process. They do the screening, they provide the thermometers and whatever else is necessary. They provide where the best locations are to do the screening. They help guide you on where to put quarantine facilities up. If somebody's positive, where are you going to put them until they can safely leave the premises? Or if somebody during the work state, you know, just during, you know, like a regular, like first aid, you can't send them to the first aid room unless you make that first aid room a quarantine area. So it's all the planning that needs to happen in there. One of the things that we had ran into was a response. So someone was actually at work and became ill. And this was when we had SARS. We need a special program or procedure in place. How do we transport this person? Do we call, you know, emergency facilities? Do we let our first aid EMTs work on this person? So you need to make that decision. And what precautions are you going to put in place? Are the precautions that you probably have in place now for bloodborne pathogens, is that good enough? Your call. What else do you need to put in place if bloodborne pathogen protection is not good enough for your first aid brigade or for your EMTs? And then what do you do with somebody who's ill? Do you let them sit there? You know, you usually quarantine an area anyway for their protection, but now you're quarantining an area for everybody else's protection. So these are your thoughts as, okay, I'm ramping up. Now I've got all these new issues. I'm going to have all these new people in here. Similarly is the mitigation. We talked about that a little bit, the common areas. And then how are you going to train and tell people what's going on without scaring them? But give them enough information so they're smart, they're making good decisions, they're not risking their own safety or health or others, and they know what to do in case of an emergency or something non-routine. So again, operations, you may talk to operations about routine work and non-routine work. Non-routine work, maybe that waits. So for instance, non-routine work is a shutdown turnaround. You know, those kind of things in a plant, or maintenance of a line, maintenance of a piece of equipment. preventative maintenance. Those are usually non-routine jobs. So you've got routine stuff, you got non-routine stuff. Decision with you, the plant leader, and the operations as to what's coming up, what's working, what's our short-term goals, our long-term goals, and again, who are we? Are we essential? Are we making something that's non-essential? So a big decision in how you structure when people come back, if you're considered critical infrastructure or you're essential. So these, again, the actions that we've talked about, we talked a lot about this, about HR. But again, in my experience, a real appreciation for who HR does, the processes that they own, and how important it is that we're walking with them step by step in return to work criteria, employee compensation. That's not our thing, but it may be influencing people if they choose to come back early or sooner because of the compensation. Maybe they won't get paid. You don't get paid leave, or they won't be allowed to take their vacation, so they have a real dispensation to come in to work. That becomes our problem because if someone's sick or they're caring for sick people, you need to know that, and maybe they shouldn't be coming back to work. I don't know if you do ride sharing or some of your employees may take public transportation. If it is, that's an education to them. You may stop ride sharing for the immediate future. Educate them on public transportation, how to protect themselves from exposure. So again, this is our job now. Remember, we've got all these roles. We've got a business role and we got a technical role. And in that technical role, it marries up with how well we are integrating in with the business. And there's a short term, well, there's a current situation. And then there's a startup, and that startup is probably going to be phased, and that startup phases are probably going to be short-term, long-term. So this is where, remember, we started out with the plans, the continuity plans. This is where these plans come into play. So hopefully, in your plans, this is all already thought out. So you're not working ad hoc. You're not working on the fly and, oh my gosh, now I don't have enough PPE equipment. Now what do I do? You don't want to be caught, right? And speaking of the PPE, I know there's been recent studies done, very recent, on ways that an N95, not a surgical mask, but an N95 can be treated so that it's clean, at least safe or believed safe for up to 5 uses. I've seen 3 in the literature. And I just saw 5, so I'm not sure if 3 or 5 is exactly correct because it's a conflict of data now. But there's been enough studies done that there's 3 ways now, you probably know this, that if you do need to clean, sanitize an N95, it's vaporized hydrogen peroxide, UVC, light, and heat and steam. Those are believed to be the 3 ways, at least the data says, that the integrity of the N95 won't be compromised, either the fit, or remember there's 4 layers in an N95, and the 4 layers are for protection. It's also for a charge to catch the particles. So when you're using other means that people may think are okay, you may be, I can't imagine somebody doing this, but putting them in a microwave or dousing it with bleach, or I don't know what some people may think, but any of these ways other than the ones I just mentioned will compromise the fit and will compromise the structure, at least of an N95. We're not talking about the masks that are cloth. We're not talking about surgical masks. These are only for reuse of N95s. So if you do, the data's out there that there are ways to do. It's very new. I think it may be only a week old, but it's out there. So, okay, here we are. We know who we are. We've got our roles. We've got responsibilities. We know we're a business champion. We know we're a business aligner. We know that we're a business partner. We're working with the business, creating these plans. We know we've got short-term and long-term actions to take from a very technical perspective, but if we do those well, we're marrying up. Okay, so in your mind now, how do I make sense of all this? My suggestion is to go back to a tried and true way of plan, do, check, act. Now, I took this right out of a boot camp that I had done 2 years ago, and I'm probably going to redo it. People are asking me to redo this because of the current situation we're in. This is actually a very straightforward way of analyzing a current situation, putting in place what you need to, check to make sure it works, and then redesign. You can't get simpler than that, right? This is also the way that you change a culture. So whether you're trying to do a large-scale initiative or project, you can use Plan, Do, Check, Act. Whether you're trying to implement a new culture, you can use Plan, Do, Check, Act. So in this case, you're trying to implement a new way, a new normal, a new culture around this new biologic. You can use Plan, Do, Check, Act. So for sake, for time, I'm not going to go through this, but you'll get these slides and you can go through this. But this is really the way that I would suggest you think about getting either a project or initiative done or transformation done. And I think we're in the midst of an enormous culture transformation that we can actually leverage. Because if our goal is to get a safety, health, environmental culture in place, this is one of the biggest driving forces, I mean, in my career I've ever seen, in order to place us squarely in the middle of the business and how important we are and the culture of what people need to do from a safety and health perspective and how the whole organization needs to be thinking and operating around this. This is a culture transformation moment. So my suggestion to you is to use it like this and try this Plan, Do, Check, Act cycle. It's very effective, it's very straightforward, it's very easy. The one, I'll make only 2 comments on it that I have seen be critical for its success in any culture transformation, honestly. And the one is right here, clear, easy, and desirable. And again, for those folks who have worked with me before, you probably, I hope you remember this, I hope you still use it. Clear, easy, and desirable means that whatever we want to do, we've identified our goals, we've identified the actions that are needed, and it's very clear in our mind. Now we need to make it clear in everybody's mind. So that's the clear part. You make it very clear and very understandable what needs to be done and why, and what their job is in it. And their job may change now in this new transformation, but be very transparent about that. So this is the new world. This is the new normal. This is why we're going in this direction. And this is what it means to the company. This is what it means to you personally. And this is how it's going to affect you. Okay, at least people know at that point. That's fair to everybody about what's going on. That's the clear part. So you see mission, vision, you see all kinds of stuff and plans. All that stuff plays into make it clear. Once people understand what to do, now you got to make it easy for them. Because if it's not easy, they're not going to do it. Or if they're going to do it, they may try their very best, but they may not accomplish what you really need them to do because they're doing their best with the knowledge they have and the tools that they have. So our job as professionals is to make it easy for them. And that's a win-win because it's going to be easy for them. They're not going to get frustrated. And boy, it's easy for us because this is the way that we can assure, at least help assure, that the result of all their effort is going to be the right actions, the right results, and the right behaviors, what we want. So we're kind of like stacking the deck, right? We're making it easy for them, but we're also trying to assure that we get what we want net done. So make it easy. Make it easy means training. It means tools. It means education. Maybe it's lunch and learns. Maybe it's personal coaching. Any way that we can help people understand and not have a complicated bureaucracy, not have a, oh yeah, I'll get to you next week or next month. This is on our shoulders now. If we're going to make it easy, we have to do that. So we need to develop all the tools. We need to develop policies, procedures, checklists, whatever they need in order to make it easy. Easy training. We could put in peer coaching. One of the things that I've done that worked really well was supervisor roundtables. Because if it's usually, If it's a problem or a challenge for one supervisor, probably it's a challenge or problem for all supervisors, right? So let the supervisors talk about it. Likewise, I used to hold plant manager roundtables. And, in the beginning, they're like, oh, Kathy, this is stupid, blah, 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 right? But in the end, they loved it. I said, look, just give it a chance once. Just sit through this 30-minute call once and come with every single question you can possibly have and just like data dump on each other. And they loved it. And why loved it? Because all of a sudden I have all these supervisors or plant managers so much more knowledgeable, so much more cooperative, and so much more effective. What more could I want? So think creatively. How can you make it easy for people? From an employee base, I'm sure you have employee safety committees. This is perfect for an employee safety committee on a new topic, whatever that topic may be. Make it easy for them. They network, they work together, they're excited, they're happy, they're evolving new answers. Again, make it easy. So make it clear, make it easy, and the last thing is make it desirable. This is when you make it desirable, you're looking at how do you motivate someone to do basically what you want. So this can be desirable on the positive side, this can be desirable on the negative side. On the positive side, this could be recognition and reward. It can be from a plan perspective. I was just talking with someone today about awards called above and beyond awards. It could be for an individual employee, it could be for a team, it could be for a plant, but they went over and above their job, above and beyond. Or share a success that a nice team has done in your company, in your company website, on your company newsletter. Put a little flyer together. Actually, it's probably not a good idea now because we're trying to minimize contact with stuff. So maybe you make it, maybe it's all virtual. But the idea is that you're sharing and you're helping people understand what's been done and you're sharing the success. My only learning or sharing that with you is that can just avoid one trap in desirable, actually two traps. One is sometimes desirable becomes the goal. Well, no, the recognition becomes so strong that it overrides the value and the reason for what's being done in the first place. So the easiest example is rates, right? Injury rates, and you got goals set up and objectives, and if sometimes there's an award or something given to a plant that's gone so many days without an injury or illness, or they make their rate, everybody gets something. Now, sometimes if that something is too big, you can actually deter reporting. Okay, you don't want to do that. Also, as a very personal issue, I also have a problem with giving a recognition award for meeting goals like that, because it always has the possibility of deterring reporting. So I don't like that idea anyway, but as an example, the desirable piece. The other thing I'll share with you that I learned on making it desirable is not everybody likes public accolades. And this is early on in my career that I had, I put in something employee of the month. I forget even what the criteria was, I forget, but I just remember the lesson I learned was that a person, and it happened to be in Europe, and the person won and they did a great job and was publicized as employee of the month. Well, they were mortified because they did not want public recognition. It was just counter to this person's feelings about being recognized as an individual. They said, I'm a member of a team and I don't like to be singled out. So it just backfired terribly. So my lesson from that is, if you're going to be doing something like recognition reward, ask people what they like as the form for recognition. And a lot of times, most operations or plants or offices have a safety committee on recognition. So you ask the team to come up with it themselves. They decide, and then you just say, okay, and you do what they want to do. So that's my little discussion on Plan, Do, Check, Act and some learnings. But again, the two things I'm sharing with you that I think are absolutely critical. One is those 24 processes and we're a business partner, we belong to be integrating into those because we don't own any of those processes. The second is making it clear, easy, and desirable for people to do what you'd like them to do to get the results, not only for the behaviors that you'd like, but also for the results that you'd like. Okay, now here we go. And I'm going to end in just a few minutes because I want to make sure there's some time for questions, but this is just about at the end. After all the role that you've had, and we've talked about being the leader, being the business champion, helping through the change of a short term, the current situation, the long term, coming people back to work, your own planning and a plan, do, check back. Now you are the leader. So how do you maximize your success of a chance of changing, being the change agent to that new normal? How do you do that? Again, I would leverage plan, do, check, act, but in your thinking, as you're doing that planning, I have plan, do, check, act this week. It's kind of buried down here, sorry. But as you're doing that, take really hard look at the lessons that were already shared. I mean, it's back a couple slides that we talked about. You have your own lessons, I'm sure, in your own plans from your own situations, you know, from the country about how SARS was experienced. I mean, there's all these lessons about preparedness and disruptions. And what did you learn from that? Take those and maximize your success for being prepared and being preventative, and build what you need to build. And take those lessons and build them into your own new strategy. So say you're creating a new normal, you're creating a new culture. So in that culture change, leaders are critical, right? Oops, oh my goodness, I'm sorry, it keeps jumping around. Employees are critical in this integration issue we've been talking about. Those are your three arms, or your three legs of a stool, if you want, in order to drive that culture. What do you want people to do, and how? Remember, clear, easy, and desirable. What do you want people to do? How are you going to make it easy for people, and how are you going to make it desirable for people to do what you want and need them to do, whether it's something independent of a business process, or more likely it's integrated, right? Integrated into somebody else's process. Okay, your strategy. Do you have enough people to do this? Do you have enough brain power to do this? Do you have enough hands to do this? This is not a call for massive hiring. This is a matter of, remember we talked about the skills. What are your skills, and what are the skills of the people who work with and for you? Are they going to understand everything we just talked about? So that this is not compliance. This is so beyond compliance. This is about leading change and motivating and influencing people and being prepared. So this is not just mere compliance, but this goes beyond compliance, and you're challenging the status quo to continually look at, how do I remove risks, and how do I create new partnerships so that I make sure my business is resilient and it can continue through and after this crisis. So that means, do I look at myself as a servant leader? Am I the partner? So these are the things, these are the lessons that I would offer you as you're thinking about leading into this new change. So it's not solely containing and mitigating this horrible virus. It's bigger than that. It's the opportunity creating a new normal safety, health, environmental culture, building on the one that you already have, and looking at lessons that you have and building your strategy, or maybe enhancing it, looking at your talent that you have, and again, making it easy for people to do the right thing. That's the culture. That's how it's going to be sustained. So this, I'm not going to go through this in detail, but these are the 6 steps. So if you want that new normal, this is basically the process I followed all my career in order to change that culture. This is the how-to steps. And here's your secret successes. There's that clear, easy, desirable again. And then from helping your leadership and show it and prove it, so that your leaders are, and again, they're going to need help in this, right? This is the make it easy step. So the leaders, I mean, they're doing so many other things and they don't really know. And I always give them the benefit of the doubt. They don't know what they don't know. So that's our job, is to show them How do you show how important safety or health environment is? How do you show how important it is to everybody in here that you have to social distance? You must do this. There's no exceptions. How do you help your leader show that and prove it that it's important? That's going to be your personal coaching. So you come down here and here we are, right? A lot of our job is coaching. We're teachers, we're builders, we're drivers. We are the motivation behind people. So yes, we're the technical people and we've got compliance on our plate. It'll never drop off. But if we can do this, what you see here, compliance becomes a given, becomes so much easier to do because we're thinking way beyond that at this point. So in summary, these are our roles: technical expert and leader. We've talked a lot about being a leader. Again, this is a crazy time. But again, think about it as it's offering us an opportunity to reinforce and enhance a culture that we already have, and people doing the right thing, wanting to do the right thing, and builds on your role as making it easy for people, making it desirable for people, building it into how the business operates. This is going to build your resilience. This is going to build your culture. It all follows. It's so logical. The question is, how are you? Can you do this? So I have references for you. Some of the things I referenced, I don't know how much you look at CDC and WHO and OSHA. I know, OSHA's US, I know, but there's some interesting help in here. So there's some helpful references for you. And then also on the leadership side, these are some of the books that I've read. Actually, I read these and I reread these to remind me of what does it mean to be a good change leader. So these are wonderful books that I highly recommend. And with that, it sounds very straightforward, but do you have any questions? So I'm going to hand it over, I think, to Mohammed. And I know we have about 15 minutes left. So, and I think I can also do this. Let's see if I can open up questions. I'm not sure exactly how to see all these questions.
Thank you,
So, Mohammed,
Cassie,
go ahead.
so much. Yes, I'm back again. Yeah. Thank you, Cassie, a lot for the intense information. Just to let you know, however, I'm left American Standard more than 11 years ago, but the 24%, yeah, but the 24 processes is still till now one of my key lesson for success. It helped me a lot to integrate in my current company, how to align a business, my safety as a business value, and even I introduced this topic 2 times in our BDC in Egypt, helping our colleagues to understand the real role as HSC leader and our business partner. That's why thanks a lot, and I know that you are the best one who can teach us or learn us about this topic.
Thank
But
you.
really,
Thank you
but yeah, but really, I would like also to share with everyone here that this is the right time for us to take the lead again, or reintroduce ourselves, not just as a business center or just as a function, just prevent accident, whatever, but we can represent ourselves as a business partner who sustains a business, help business running, increase profitability. Just find the business drives that lead your organization, and from there you can start.
Good.
Yeah, and this is so. I think we have here some questions.
Okay.
Some of them are technical questions. Like, is using sanitizing walk-through unit gate may help in reducing potential infection? You know this idea? It's a start in some of the plants here in Egypt, and I think we saw it in the States as well. That is, people before enter the workplace, they go through gate, which have applied some kind of disinfectant. I don't know actually what kind of disinfectant used from site to site, but I think Ahmed asking about the what do you think about this?
Okay. I don't think it's a bad idea. I think anything you can do to try to have the containment, right, which is try to not introduce the virus into the workplace is a good one. Of course, I don't know what disinfectant you're using or if it's really if it's a short burst or a spray or something, and if it's really touching the person everywhere. So that would be one question about how effective it is. And the second comment is, as soon as the person walks into the plant or wherever they're going, and they begin touching things, now they're contaminated. So if they're spraying people so that you're trying to kill what's on them, so it's not introduced into the workplace, the only question I ask is how effective is it getting everywhere, or is there, like a spray or something, a spritz? So I don't know how effective that is. I mean, I'm not telling you to stop it, and I don't think it's a bad idea, but that's what comes to my mind.
I think it's not a bad idea, but also I think it also sometimes it gives false feeling, or just people you are sanitizing people. But the problem with inside people, yes, it helps if they are contaminated from outside, but if the potential or someone was positive but without symptoms, it's still the risk there. So also
Exactly.
yes, so from my point of view, also I believe that this one is not effective. However, it could have some negative impact, like of course the occupational health. There is nothing not tested before. What of the long exposure every day? Someone being sanitizing with whatever chlorine, hydrogen peroxide, whatever the material. I think from long exposure we could create a new type of hazard. So we need
Yeah.
also to think about that. Yes.
Yeah, I really agree with that very much. I would do whatever you can to do your own risk assessment of it, because I think, yeah, now you've got a low level chronic exposure to something that, and people have all different kind of sensitivities too. So it may be okay
Exactly.
for me, but it may not be okay for you.
Sure. Okay, the next question is totally understand and agree with you regarding to how we should be ready. But the question is, how do we can cooperate, coordinate between all sectors and our government to prepare and provide required guidance and support to minimize all sequence at each site? This question I think is very too early, like after 20 minutes from the starting of the webinar. So I think it's partially, but if you would like to comment, please go ahead.
Well, I mean, part of it, I guess I'm not able to answer because I don't know the relationship with the different government bodies. I mean, my only advice is the same advice I give people here, is that we need to follow whatever the government, the state, the local, the state, in the United States, and the nationals say. We've got CDC telling us what to do. We've got WHO telling us what to do. We've got OSHA telling us what to do. We've got
Yes.
counties telling us what to do. So they end up being a big long checklist of what we need to do. So I'm not sure how else to answer it other than perhaps you've got a fabulous network on the call right now, to use each other for how do we get through this mess, because I'll just speak for here. Sometimes all the requirements, they're not in sync. So I mean, you can abide by one, but then you're not abiding by another. And
Yes.
how do you make sense of all these different requirements? Because apparently all these organizations, I mean, they're not necessarily in sync with each other either.
Yes, I agree. And also, just a small comment on that. Sometime, yes, maybe we will have a little or just a lot of. We cannot just because he's Muhammad, he was asking about how to support government. I think we can also just to focus on our companies in our area, which we have authority. So by this, and all of us, we in his area can support the whole community and the government.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, I agree with that. And I mean, I'm running into that where I live on just the county level, county, little piece of a state, right? A
mm,
little piece of a county. And I mean, you have a voice with the board of commissioners. So, but that's out of our scope of authority. So I
sure.
stick within your scope of authority. If you have the opportunity to raise your hand and a voice with the government, that if you have that chance, then go ahead and do it. But as far as, oh my gosh, the list is enormous of what we've got to do. So I would try to stick within your own scope of authority, you know.
Fully agree. The next question is: do you think fabric non-medical mask will be effective as a protection safety gear?
No, that's a good question. It's being talked about right now all over the place, isn't it?
And you know that
Because
CDC already posted a video showing that how to just do whatever mask from your T-shirt,
oh,
whatever
yeah,
to protect yourself. So I
I know.
think,
I know. As a safety professional, I just hate to see that.
yes,
Um, you know, because I'm thinking, you know, to your earlier point, how dangerous is that to create a sense of false security when it is absolutely, I'm not saying it's useless, but if it's doing anything, it is protecting the source, right? Because it's, I mean, who knows what the pore size is of that? I mean, I've seen cotton T-shirts, I've seen socks, I've seen crazy stuff
yes,
people doing this with. Um, but you know, if anything, droplets are big, so maybe it's help protecting coughs and sneezes and droplets. But that's all it's doing, if it's even doing that.
mm,
Um, and again, my fear is that it's creating a false sense of security. But I will say on the positive side, it's very interesting because it's creating a very strong sense of community. Because I'm seeing, like, I'm seeing friends, I'm seeing people at my church or my social groups. They're making hundreds of these. I see teenagers making these. Um, so it's a very interesting turn that all of a sudden there's this united cooperation that didn't exist before for something to help people that they don't even know. So,
yes.
okay, good thing. As a safety professional, I don't like it because I'm afraid that you know, people don't know and they'll really misunderstand the value of wearing a bandana. Um, so, but it's out there. CDC did it. Because I mean, they know regions of the world routinely wear masks, but they don't wear bandanas and socks. I mean, they really have surgical masks. You know, so they've got something meaningful, right? For everyone, right? I mean, geez, come on. I mean, a whole population is wearing surgical masks. They're not wearing socks. So it's just, I mean, I understand, I guess, why they did it, but I shake my head. I don't know. Because if
Uh,
people
I,
understand
I
it,
I think it
yeah,
came because of the high demand on the mask is that people start to like adapt to some local resources. Otherwise,
yes,
from the point just something better than nothing.
yes,
So I think this is the only reason can be accepted. But
yes,
the
yes, I
concern
agree.
for us as safety professionals that is yes, this is a protect or not. And what about this infection? That is will keep it how much or how frequent he will wash it or clean it or disinfect it. So that's
Exactly.
why yeah. So I think it's
No,
alone is
I
not should be
totally agree with you. I mean, I understand that. I understand. But to me, I have so many more questions, and you just raised a couple of them. How are they going to clean it? Are they going to throw it in the laundry? You know, I don't know. It's the danger of uneducated people. They're trying to do something that I don't know if they're going to end up infecting themselves worse.
yes. Okay, moving to the next question is how can we get top management engaged effectively also to ensure their commitment as long as pandemic exists, especially preparedness and control need resources?
Mm. Yeah, yeah, that's a good question. It's a question that we'll always have. You know,
Mm,
how do we get everything we want and need? How do we get the leaders to understand this? A couple of things that I found in that make it clear, easy, desirable has been make it clear. It's kind of on the make it desirable side because make it desirable can also be on the ethics. So that when people uh, and I did something, maybe some of you remember it, when we first launched safety leadership training in order to
yes,
change the culture of American Standard. Part of safety leadership training was a very brief exercise right in the beginning to share with the class if anyone has experienced an injury or illness in the workplace or their family. And what was the impact of that personally and on your work team if it happened at work, or your family if it happened personally, or even if it did happen at work, what was the impact on your family? So in the beginning, I tell you, the first time I did that, I thought, oh my gosh, this is so silly. Nobody's going to do this. But it ended up being one of the most effective things that I ever did, because it tapped into a personal and an ethics. Because, and this is part of an answer to the question. Because I mean, no leader ever wants his or her people hurt. And likewise, I mean, if they made it into a leader position, chances are they've been around for a while, and also chances are they've experienced some kind of injury, and also chances are it may have even been a very serious one. So you're tapping into something that it's sad, it's unpleasant, it's tragic, but it also brings out the message that you can do something about this.
I think I also can add some additional that he was asking about how to get top management engaged effectively. For the moment, I think if just to as a safety professional, just go and declare that I'm ready to support you to bring back the operation safely. I think this is the first. You will get their buy-in, as long as sometimes safety go against operations. That is, we need to keep everyone safe, stop the operation, suspend. But this is not the right time. I think we need to understand the fact that sometimes, not to compromise people's safety, of course, but just to declare and understand, or just sharing with the top management that you are ready to help. I think from
Yes.
there you can start. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. There's your business alignment, a servant leader to the business, right?
Exactly.
That's exactly the other way to make sure you're trying to get as much support as you need, because I'm here, your voice, right? I'm here to help the business. I'm here to help the business succeed. And we got to get up and running. And we need healthy people in the plants. And because we need healthy people in the plants, this is what we need to do. No healthy people, no plant, no operation, or shutdown. So it means
Yes.
business leaders are smart. I mean, they may not, I mean, I remember having these discussions with my senior leadership about all the preparedness and how many PPE and how many masks I needed and all that stuff. Oh my gosh, it's a lot of money, right?
Yes.
And I remember the question, Kathy, do you really need these? And I said, well, how serious are you about getting up and running?
I think also we can extend to the next question, because the next question is it mandatory to use a mask during the work in the field as one of PPE?
In the field, meaning like a service field position or construction?
I think, yeah, maybe he's in the field, maybe, yes, he referred to site construction, maybe oil and gas site, or
Yeah.
yes, I think this is the term.
I mean, the proper answer is you need to do a risk assessment to decide that answer. I mean, if you're working, and because I don't know what you're doing, right? If you're working side by side with other men and women, and in order to do your job, you got to be a couple feet apart, then I think I would wear it. But if you're in the field and you're in construction, and I mean, I've been on enough construction sites that the guys don't have to be 6 feet together or closer than that. They can be far apart. You need a way to communicate with each other, but you don't have to be inches or a couple feet. So if you can do your job and you don't need to be next to each other, then no, I don't think you need them. But in order to answer that, you really need to do your own risk assessment. Answer your question with facts.
Okay, the next question is, should we review and update the current corporate risk matrix based on the recent outbreak?
Yes. Yeah, that's a one word answer.
Okay.
And right. And the reason I say that is because hopefully the matrix already had something in here about this, because we all have already experienced SARS and MERS and avian flu and swine. This is pandemics. This is not the first pandemic. It's the worst one, but it's not the first. So hopefully it's already in there. But yes, I would absolutely do that. And I would do that in the planning, because if you do that in the planning, that means it's going to make its way through the process to say, do we have all the right procedures? I mean, everything we talked about, those questions are going to come up. If it's in the plan, because you want to execute the plan, and then
Yeah.
you want to drill the plan. So absolutely, yeah.
Okay, next question is actually I already watched it in via CNN. I think he was yes, that's the same comment on the wearing the using the cotton mask or whatever. I think he was commenting on this. How the best method to integrate? Okay, how is the best method to integrate HSE in HR procedures?
Okay. If you're thinking about, or the question is, like an operations job, um, I would, let's see, what's the best way to answer that? If it's in an SOP or work instruction, then I would sit down with the supervisor or that work area and look at what all the job tasks are. And then you're able to look at which are the ones that have the highest risk. And can I put something in user hierarchy controls? Can I design it out, or do I need to put a barrier in place, or do I need to put some kind of administrative control in place? So that's what I would do. I know you have JSAs and JSHAs in place. That's a safety tool. So if I was working with operations, or I wanted to put safety into operations, I wouldn't start with a JSA. I'd go right to operations, right to what they follow, and they probably have an SOP or work instruction, and I would go to there. That's how I would start, and then you can do a JSA, because that's a continual safety kind of document. You train people on it, but you want operations on board, go to what operations uses.
Excellent. Okay, next question is about the centralized air condition, and it could be help in spreading the COVID-19 infection.
Yeah. Yes, it's a very good question, a very good point, and I don't have an answer other than you hit something that's a real concern. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's HEPA filters.
Yes, HEPA
But
filter is the only one accepted, but till now, because it can be stuck there, nothing can stuck there. But till now, I think because of it's relying on a lot of variables, like how frequent they clean the current one. It's some
yeah,
have other factors. Yes.
yeah, and I mean, it's a fabulous point and question, and I do not have an answer other than, I mean, you can brainstorm with, I mean, I don't know if who asked that question, but I mean, with people who are experts in HVAC systems. So I don't know if Train's on the call or not.
I think this is trigger another question for me. I think this is the right place. That's maybe if it's not there about the air conditioning in the hospitals. I
Mhm.
think it will be more concerned about this because you already have people confirmed with COVID-19 inside. So
Yeah.
from there, I think we can start this question for Mustafa Rawi, and I think we can take another discussion about this one because everyone here working using work condition and all of our workplace rely on centralized one. So I think this is a good topic title for to be more to have technical discussion about that.
Yes, I agree.
Uh, uh, Feedback on the question that's okay. This is the right time to introduce ourselves for the new role, but how to keep it after? Because sometimes that this is the safety now is this is the voice now, or the safety has the time now, so he can bring back
Mhm.
again to the in front. But could be like just a temporary status, and after everything back to normal, we will not keep. We will not be the same. So I
Right,
think that was
yes,
yes.
and that's our challenge. That's why I'm suggesting with whatever safety or safety, health, environmental culture you have right now, use this as an opportunity. I mean, I'm saying that in very constructive terms, so that you don't slide back. That and you want to. I mean, and you're looking at how to convince leaders that tell them. In fact, the facts and the experts are out there that this is not going to. It's very likely we're going to have a second peak. And it's also very likely if you go do the history of the pandemics, my gosh, almost like every 2 years or so, we've had some kind of huge disruptive crisis. So, I mean, how many times do you want to chase yourselves, right? This is a matter of getting ahead of ourselves. And that's the pitch I would make to the leaders. enough running around. We're wasting money, wasting time, people getting hurt, exposed. Let's get ahead of this and be successful for a business, be resilient instead of chasing every 2 years when the next crisis comes.
Hmm. Okay. Uh, Ask about in our non-medical services, we deal with the hazard of COVID-19 as we in alarm area, yeah, as low as reasonably practicable area, or we in high risk.
And I'm sorry, what area is that?
Again, asking about in our is as we are working in non-medical service, we deal with the hazard of COVID-19 as we in alarm area. Alarm means like the classification as low as reasonably practicable. Like
Oh,
he just work with the hazard until as reasonably or low reasonably practicable. So this is accepted, or we will be all again in high risk as long
oh,
as he is not in medical service. What do you think?
yeah. Well, I guess again, I go back to a risk assessment. I
Hmm.
mean, what are you doing? How much do you think you're exposed to? What are the controls that are in place now? How often are you exposed? I mean, do your own analysis, because it's hard for me to answer that without knowing kind of the whole situation. But that's how I would answer it if I were you. I want to know what's going on around me, and then I'll know, is it good or bad, or how bad is it, and then I can know what controls to put in place, and then I can have that data to say, hey, leader, this is the situation I'm in, or others are in, and this is what we need to do about it. So again, I always try to do things factual, because I've found that's very helpful with our leaders too. So there's no emotion here.
Yes.
They don't respond well to emotion. They want facts, and the more and look at, and this is what we do, right? So give them as much facts as you can muster.
Yes. Fully agree. I think we almost replied to all of the question and have only one person raising hand. So we'll take this question as the last one. And Ayman, Ayman, you can unmute yourself, please. Okay, I think maybe you have a technical issue. Um, a couple of thanks here I would like to raise. First one, I would like to thank our colleague Ahmed Azam for help coordinate communication with Cassie and invite her to this webinar. And the final thank you for Cassie because of accepting our invitation and talk about our speaker today. It really was, as you mentioned in the beginning, this is with a special feeling, like our senior manager before just coming back again and teach us again. So thanks a lot, Cassie, for accepting this and for your time for answer all of the questions.
Oh, well, thank you. I mean, this is my pleasure. I was so thrilled to hear from Ahmed, and I am delighted to do this. Egypt, I always loved Egypt, going to the locations and meeting. I mean, so many of you, Ahmed, had sent me names and photos and history of some of you, and I remember. Egypt is a very special place for me, and I can't wait to go back when all
Sure.
this mess is past. I can't wait. One of my favorite places. Um, so I'm just so thrilled. So I'll offer again, if you would like me to talk again about something else, I'm always glad to do that. So it's my pleasure, and thank you for the opportunity.
Sure, it will be our pleasure. I also always at all the time to participate with us and learn from you and discuss with you all of our issues. So hopefully that the next couple of weeks, so we will maybe have another discussion or another topic to engage our members. So thanks everyone for staying too late. Thank you and. Again, this webinar recorded and the records will be available on our website and also will be available through the same link you used to register for the webinar. Thank you and see you next webinar. Please keep monitoring our communication channel on Telegram, Facebook, and website, and LinkedIn to know the time and the topic for the next webinar. Thank you, and thank you, Cassie, again. Thank you.
Well, thank you again. And be safe, everyone. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.